Hey there friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have the Simon Says Stamp Picnic Parade card kit, and as far as it being available as a filming, it still is, so I'll have that linked down below. But let's go ahead and take a look at what came inside this kit. This one is packed with all kinds of fun stuff. Doodlebug, mostly. There's the little coupon code. We get some candy. There is the Doodlebug Picnic Parade Shape Sprinkles. I love those little ants. They're darling. Then we have this stamp set called Summertime Barbecue. A lot of fun little images. Then we have the 12 sheets of Doodlebug double-sided Barbie Cute 6x6 paper, and I always love their paper. It's so bright and vibrant, usually the colors that they choose. Always fun and very inspiring. And these colors are just so pretty. I think all the primary is just what I'm so drawn to. So there it is. And then we also have two Slimline envelopes by Simon Says Stamp in Schoolhouse Red and Dandelion. Those are great. We have the Barbecue icon stickers by Doodlebug. There's 2 sheets, and it also says that you could punch them out and put them in your planner if you wanted, so that's kind of fun. Then we have the Simon Says Stamp 6x8 Hello Sunshine stamp set with a lot of great sentiments in there. That one's fun. And then we do have some cardstock. There's 4 sheets of cardstock, the idea sheet, but here's the 4 sheets of cardstock. You're going to get a 120-pound white Simon Says stamp. Then you're going to get some green leaf, black, and soft navy. All right, let's get started on our first card. I'm going to take some of the pattern paper in the kit. I love when they have some of these little elements like this. I'm going to trim these down because I want to use a couple of them on my card. And I'll actually pull in a few more later on for some other cards. I just love that. It just adds a lot of interest to the background. That way you can have layers, and it's just an easy thing to apply without having to have a lot of effort, which is pretty nice. So I'll save back those other pieces, and then we'll get ready to move on to the next step, which in this case is to use a stitched rectangle die, and this one's by My Favorite Things. And then I'll just run that through my die cutting machine and kind of look at what I want to do. That was some more pattern paper that I have there. I'm going to take one of the stickers, but I don't want to stick it down, so I'm going to use my magic powder bag on the back. That will take away all the stickiness. So that's just a fun way to, if you want to add some dimension later on, which I will, you can take away some of that stickiness. My next step is I want to add a little more interest to that background. So I took the barbecue stamp set that came in the kit. This is the Summertime Barbecue. And I'm going to just make a background with that and some Simon Hurley Later Gator ink. And my advice for this is always start with your biggest images. So I started with the barbecue itself, and I stamped that 3 times, kind of turning my stamp as I went. And then I'm going to move on to like the next biggest images. And this way you can fill in the gaps. Like with the smaller images, and when you get to the last little bits, you'll still find that you have some room, so you can add those to places where you may need to just fill in the gaps a little bit, but work from biggest to smallest. And now that that's done, we'll move on to our sentiment. I'm just grabbing out the thank you. I always find that I need lots of thank yous on hand, and so I'll take the cardstock that came in the kit. This is that black cardstock, and I'm going to stamp out my sentiments. I'll use a magic powder bag on the top of that to start. That just keeps the powder from sticking to places that I don't want it to stick to. And then I'm going to ink up my stamp with some Brutus Monroe embossing ink. And I just stamped out thank you 3 times. And then I'm going to grab a couple other sentiments because, to be honest with you, I wasn't exactly sure all that I wanted. And I thought, well, while I have all the supplies out, let's just go ahead and stamp a few of these because we might use them on some of the other cards. I was flying by the seat of my pants today, I'll tell you that. So I stamped all of those out, and then I'm going to cover those with some Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder. It's a fine detail embossing powder. And then I'm going to heat set those till those are smooth and melted. And you'll know that it's melted because it'll go from a matte finish to a glossy. And then you'll know that your powder's all good to go. Now I'm going to stick these into my Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer, and I'll trim down my sentiments. And this is what I used, as you saw earlier, for cutting down my little elements as well. Next will be assembly. So we're going to go ahead and attach the first piece down, just stick that down with a little bit of liquid glue, and then we'll attach our next piece. It's just fun to add these little elements to the background because it adds just, you know, like I said, not a lot of effort, but you get a lot of bang. I put some foam tape on the back of my little picnic basket, and I'll stick that down. And then I put foam tape on the back of my thank yous because I'm going to put all 3 of them on the front of this card. I thought that would just add a lot of fun interest, like thank you, thank you, thank you. And then we'll peel off the release paper on all of those and just put those down. And then I did want to bring in a little bit more of that blue, like from the blueberry on that Sweet Summer. And so I'll bring in some of those dark blue hearts and pop a few of those down just to bring in a little bit more of that blue. And then I already have my card base ready to go, which was some of the white cardstock that came in the kit. So I'll attach down my card panel to my card base using that same liquid glue. And then I have to do the inside. So I'm going to take that Sweet Summer image from the front and I'm going to replicate that on the inside with the stickers. So we'll build up using our watermelon, our cute little lemon. We'll grab the strawberry and then we'll grab the blueberry as well. It's just so much fun to do that. I think that Doodlebug has really, they've just hit it with these. It's so cute. And then I'll attach down one more sentiment, and that's going to finish off our first card. Super simple, but it still adds some stamping elements. Card number 2 is a fairly simple card. I just have a piece of white cardstock cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm going to take that little sunray square stamp and I'm going to put that at the very bottom corner of my mini Misty. And then I'm going to ink it up with some of my Simon Hurley inks. This first color that I'm using is Rosy Cheeks. And then I'll stamp that down. I chose to use the Misty simply because I wanted to make sure if I didn't get it stamped well that I would be able to stamp it again. I'll clean off my stamp. I flipped my paper, and then this next color is called Slippery When Wet. It just cracks me up every time I read the Simon Hurley ink names. They're so funny. And then I'm going to clean that stamp off and I'm going to move it. I figure I'm just going to use up this paper as best we can. So the next color I'm going to use is Overzealous. And then we'll stamp that down, and then we'll clean our stamp and turn our paper one more time. And then that final color I'm going to be using is Midnight Snack. So I'll tell you my thought process on this one. I was kind of thinking, you know, those pictures that you see with like Marilyn Monroe or a person and they're done in different colors like that and they're right next to each other. I know it's a little bit different obviously, but that was just the inspiration. And then I do have that white space in the center, so I figured I'd use that and put my sentiment there. But I am going to cut all this down. So I'll ink this up with some of my Brutus Monroe Raven Detail ink. And I'm glad I had it in the Misty. It didn't stamp as crisply as I'd like, so I stamped it again and it was perfect. So I'll pull this out and then I'm going to use my Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer to trim everything down. And basically I'm going to cut right up against those images. I don't really want a whole lot of white space around the images because I'm going to put them onto a card front. And then I'll trim down my sentiment, just lining that up with the clear plastic piece on my guillotine trimmer. And then I'll just trim that down all sides just like that. And the cardstock that I'm using is some of the blue cardstock that came in the kit. This is that soft navy, and I had cut all of my pieces down to 8 1/2 inches by 5 1/2 inches, so I'm scoring that at 4 1/4. This is an A2 size card, side folding, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, not really, just envisioned it a little differently in my head, but we're going to go with it anyway. So I'll stick down the first one, and then just lining that yellow, or the Slippery When Wet, next to the Rosy Cheeks. And we're just going to flush those right up against each other and then kind of try to move those just a little. I use liquid glue because that does give me a little bit of wiggle room. And then I'll put down the Overzealous panel, and then I'll put down the Midnight Snack panel as well. And then I started having a flashback of a previous card I had made from a different kit from Simon Says Stamp, you know, months ago. And I was like, it just did not turn out how I wanted it to, but we're going to keep going because that is my motto. Just keep working. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I'll put some foam squares on the back of my sentiment, and I'll just pop that up right in the center of all 4 of those pieces. I love that Be the Sunshine. It's a great, great sentiment. And here's where I decide this needs to be a square card. So I'm going to trim this down. In my mind, I'm thinking it can't go wrong. And honestly, I'm happy that I went ahead and cut this down a little bit better. It definitely needed to be more of a square card. And then as a final bit of embellishment, I did bring in some Nuvo White Blizzard glitter drops. They're very subtle on there, but I put about 5 in each corner there, in the upper left and lower right hand side. And that's going to finish off the card. I didn't do anything on the inside because this is definitely a smaller card, but I am happy with how this turned out. It's a little different than what I had envisioned in my mind, but I do like it. All right, card number 3 is going to be a slimline, so I do need to trim down this panel. This I'm going to trim down to 3¼ inches, so it's 3¼ by 8½ inches. And I have these pre-cut panels done. These are pre-cut card bases by Brutus Monroe, perfect, so that you just don't have to do the cutting. And they measure 7 inches by 8½ inches, so it's perfect. And so all you have to do is score these at 3½ inches, and then you'll have your base all ready to go for your slimline cards. And I'll have those linked down below if that's something that you're interested in. It does save a little bit of time. And so this will have just a little bit of a white border on the left and right hand side. All right, now to do some stamping, I'm going to take that leftover piece of the blue cardstock and stamp on it, but I'm also going to use these Hefty Doodle dies. These are the Grassy Last border dies. I want some grass for the bottom of my card, so I'm going to tack down a couple of the little grass dies onto this piece of the pattern paper that I have left over, some of the green, and I'll run that through my die cutting machine, and then I can layer these up, and that'll be on the front of my card. But it'll, it's kind of fun. They'll layer up and it'll give some dimension. On this blue panel, I'm going to stamp the clouds, and it fits perfectly to have both of those clouds, so I'm going to ink those up with some embossing ink after I hit this up with my magic powder bag. So I'll ink those up, and I'll stamp those down, and then cover that with that Alabaster embossing powder that I was using earlier for my sentiments. And this panel actually works perfectly to stamp that out a total of 3 times, so I'll have 6 clouds. Perfect. I wasn't even sure how many I needed, so I was like, well, just fill the panel and we'll see what we need, because I'm one of those that I don't want to have to get it all out again, so I'd rather have too many than not enough. So I stamped all those out, covered all of those, and then I'm going to hit that with my heat tool so that those clouds are good and melted and nice and shiny and ready to go. I will be fussy cutting these out, so if you don't like that, you won't like this, but honestly, it didn't take any time and super easy to do. I wanted to add a little dimension to my grass border, so I have some of that later Gator ink and my Trinity Stamps brushes, and I'll just brush that on the top, so that'll just kind of differentiate and give some dimension between those two borders. And then I'll attach those down with some liquid glue to the very bottom. And I like having the bigger panel because then you can kind of maneuver to see what you need. And I'm glad I used liquid glue on this part because I did have it up a little too high, so I was able to pick it up and move it down. And then I'll just use that same liquid glue on this bottom one and attach that right over the top. And I love, like I said, I love how that adds a little dimension. If you want to add even more dimension, you could pop that up with some foam tape. But I thought the liquid glue was fine. So then I'll trim off all of the excess, and then I'm super happy with my bottom. And now I want to stamp out the sun, so I've just got some white cardstock from my stash. I'm going to ink that up with some Hurley Sike ink, and I left plenty of space because I actually plan to do some layering. Now I know that this piece, this layer, goes well with the sun, and I'm going to use some traffic cone on that one. But I wanted to layer it even one more time. There is another ray of sunshine in there, and so I'm going to grab one of my lighter oranges, and this is just Guppy, and I'm going to layer on that last bit of sunshine. I don't know if they go together, but in my mind they do, so this is what we're going to do. And I really like the way that it looks. So I'll stamp that, and I'm not lining it up perfectly, but I don't care. And then I'll turn the paper, and I'll do it again. And then these little suns need some smiley faces, so I will grab out the smiley in the stamp set, and I'll ink that up with my Brutus Monroe Raven Detail ink and stamp on some smileys. And doesn't that just make you smile? Oh my gosh. And then I figure one of those needs some shades, so we're going to grab the sunglasses that came in the stamp set, and we'll ink that up with the Raven Detail ink and go over those. He's so cute. And then I will fussy cut those out. For my sentiment, I'm going to put my panel into my Misty, and then I will pick it up with the door, and I'm going to ink that up with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. It's just a very crisp black ink. Stamp that down, and it stamped very nicely that first time, so we'll clean all that up and move on to assembly. So I have the sun. It's not actually down yet. I just wanted it down for reference so that I know where to put my cloud. And then for my sun, I'm going to put a couple of foam squares just on the top of him. You could have put it all over the bottom, or just all over the back of that sunshine, but I decided to just put it on the upper portion, and then we'll put some glue on the bottom portion because I do want to pop up the clouds and I didn't want to have to think about that a whole lot. So this way I can just put foam tape all over the back of those clouds. I've got some bigger squares and some smaller squares that I'm using. These are from Scrapbook Adhesive. They just work really well and they're not crazy expensive. So I'll pop that one down. I didn't like where it was, so thankfully it hadn't completely adhered yet, so I was able to pick that up and move that just a little. And then my other cloud, he's going to need a couple of foam squares, but I got to be strategic as to where I put those because it is overlapping the other cloud that does have foam on him as well. So I've got a half square that I'll even stick at the bottom there. And then I am going to use a tiny bit of liquid glue. Put it on the wrong portion. It's not going to be going on anything. So then I did finally discover that it has to go up. And I'll attach that one down. And then we do need to put this other one. It just needed something more. And to be honest, I'm not thrilled with this background. It needs more, and I'll discover that later and I'll figure it out. But we're going to go ahead and do the inside. And I had one of those little panels cut out and ready to go for the top. I wasn't sure yet, but we are going to use that sun in there with some clouds, because he's just too cool for school. And then we'll put him down and all of his clouds around him. And then I just decide that doesn't need to be there. So I'm not going to adhere that piece, but I am going to grab one of the sentiments that I stamped earlier on that black cardstock, and we will adhere that to the inside. So I think that's a fun little sentiment, sending you lots and lots of sunshine. And then we'll cut off the excess clouds from our panel. And we can't adhere it yet because at this point I'm looking at that going, it needs more. So I did grab out this stamp from the stamp set, and I'm going to ink that up with my embossing ink. So it'll just basically give it like a watermark ink. It's very subtle in that background, but it's something. It just needed something to break up all that flat space. And so I'll just stamp that a few times, and now I'm happy. So we'll adhere that down with some liquid glue. I say I was happy, but I did know it needed something more. So I grabbed in those little ant stickers. Those are so cute. And I pop a couple of those little babies up on the grass. So I'll put one looking that way and one looking at the other little guy. And we'll put a heart in between them, like he's visiting his friend. And then now I am officially happy and done with this card. So that's going to finish off our third card. I love Slimline. Y'all know that if you watch me. And I do like how this one turned out. Card number 4 is going to be another Slimline, and I'm going to try and make these patterned papers work to fit across that whole panel. And we can do it because I'm going to have a lot going on my background. It is very possible. We'll just kind of be creative with it. So I've cut these down to be 1 1/4 inches. I end up cutting them down a little bit more, but this pattern, the way it's set up, you can very easily just overlap and make that picnic table just kind of keep going. So it's almost flawless, almost seamless. And we're going to cut this down because it ends up, like I said, just being a little too tall for me. So I'll put these back in my guillotine trimmer and just trim off another 1/4 inch. So it'll just be about 1 inch. And then I'm also going to take some blue patterned paper. This is the very light blue. It just has a very random pattern all over it. And we're going to make that work too. Now these patterns don't line up, but I'm cutting these to be 3 inches by 6 inches. And I'll end up trimming those down just a little bit more as well. I just wanted to make sure that, anyway, that I had it enough. I think I trim off another 1/4 inch of that. I'm not sure why I did that, but I did. So my plan on this is just to tack one of these down, which is what I'm going to do. And those don't line up perfectly, like I said. The pattern doesn't match. But because I have enough going on in that background, the recipient really isn't going to be paying attention to that, and it is almost seamless. And it's a very subtle background anyway. And actually, if you were using like a solid color, it would probably show even more, if that makes any sense. So at least the fact that it has a subtle pattern makes it a little less noticeable. So then that's tacked down, and then I'll just flip that over, and I'm going to use some of my Tim Holtz big ol' scissors. I got these on, I think Tonic was having a super sale on their scissors, so I finally just bit the bullet. I've been wanting some of those for so long. So I bought some of those, and I trimmed that off, and then there you go. You can see it there, but like I said, once we start getting the elements on there, it's not such a big deal. I'll put down my first piece of my picnic table, and then I'm going to, like I said, overlap these just a little bit. And then that one looks actually almost pretty much seamless. So that's, I mean, happy, happy. And then we'll trim that off as well, and then we're going to get started trying to figure out what elements we want on here. I'm going to do pretty much nothing but stickers, and it is going to be filled. And typically stickers aren't like my favorite thing to use, but Doodlebug does it right, and I don't know why, but I just love using them. So some of these are going to be popped up on foam squares, and then some are going to be in the background. I decided to put the pennant down first. The sun is just sitting there. It's not actually tacked down. And I'll use my T-ruler and then just a black pen that I have to give this the stick that it needs. And then I'll place my pieces that have the foam tape, just set them on there. That way I know what I want to be behind them. And then I'll grab random stickers to put down so that they're a little bit behind but still sticking up so you see their cute little faces. And then for the other pieces that'll be popped up, I use my powder bag and a foam square. And so then we've got some in the background, some in the foreground, and then I'll put these little shish kebabs down there. I end up using all three eventually. I come back with that later, but I'll put my watermelons down first. They're just so cute, all those little faces. Like I said, I'm normally not a sticker person. I prefer to do all kinds of stamping, but this was just so much fun to create a little picnic scene like this. Like they're all inviting you into the picnic. And we have our little ice cream cone in the background. We've got our sodas in the front. I'm actually from Nebraska, so we call soda pop. And then we'll put our mustard and our ketchup back there, and then we've got our hot dog in the front and our cute little hamburger. Pop him up there, and then we're going to do the same thing with, there's where I'll put down that third shish kebab, and then I'll grab the salad bowl. That's going to go on that far left-hand side. So he's kind of over the top of our pop can. And then we'll put an oven mitt down there because he brought in our pie. And then we'll put a foam square on our pie to stick him down as well. And then I'll just grab some other random elements. So the random elements I'm going to grab are the ants, and then we're going to put the spoon inside our salad. We've got a fork on the table, and then the ants, which I don't know that I'd want to eat at this picnic if there's ants all over the table, but you know, ants and picnics, they just happen to go together. So I'm having them popped up from some of the background images. And so we've got 4 on there, and then I decide I probably need a 5th one eventually, but I'm going to stamp my sentiment here in a second. So the sentiment's just going to say, hello sunshine. This I think is the only stamping I do on this card, which is funny, right? Anyway, I trim that down, and then I'll adhere this down to the front of our card, and then here's where I'll put our sun on top of that. Just going to use some liquid glue to get him down as well. And then this is where I decide I need one more ant, and so I will pop him up on our fun banner. How cute. And then we'll do the inside. So I'll grab a couple more of those little elements from earlier on that pattern paper and stick those down. And then I'm going to grab the picnic table, and we'll adhere that down to the front, or not the front, but inside on top of our little hamburger panel. And then we do need to add a few other things, right? Because we have all these stickers. And I am one of those that I feel super accomplished if I use all the stickers, so I definitely need to go back and just use these up because I don't end up using all of them, and that kind of hurts my heart. I know some people hoard this stuff, but I feel accomplished if I've used it. All right, so there we go. That is card number 4. I love how busy and fun it is with all those little picnic elements. I could just sit and look at this card all day. So cute. Okay, for our 5th and final card, we have all these elements here. I've already cut them out using some stitched rectangles. If you're wondering why I cut out that centerpiece, it's mostly because I didn't want to waste that paper, and I thought I would actually use that center rectangle on the card as well, but it turns out I just didn't have the space. And I had to use the fried chicken with the corn. I just had to. I mean, living in the South now, and fried chicken is divine out here. So had to use that, and I love sweet corn because I am from Nebraska. And what a combo. Now I originally was going to use that Good Times panel. It just doesn't fit, so I'm not going to use it, but it's sitting there for now so that you kind of have an idea of where my thought process was. But I'll now pull off some of those stickers that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to stamp thank you all over that panel in the background. I'm using 2nd and 3rd generation stamping. That's one of my favorite things to do. It just adds a lot of interest, and it's just, I don't know, it's a neat little thing to do, and it fills up a background just beautifully. I did take the sticky off of all of those because I wasn't sure how I was going to use them. So now I'm going to put some liquid glue on our little bucket of fried chicken, and then we'll use some foam tape on the rest of those pieces, just, you know, so that I can pop them all up. I notice at this point I do only have 4 pieces, so I will grab in another little piece of that fried chicken because I needed, 4 just didn't seem enough. I needed an odd number. So I'll grab that other piece of fried chicken and his cute little smiley face, and then I'll pop him down behind the other piece, and then we're going to get ready to start adhering pieces down with some liquid glue. So I'll just adhere this down to my green card base, and that's the green cardstock that came in the kit. And then I'm going to attack these down with that liquid glue as well, making sure that they're not totally straight. I wanted them to be a little bit off center, just kind of fun. And then I just decided it needed a little more, so I pull in those little Doodlebug stickers, the ants, and my camera does die on me, but thankfully we're towards the end here. So I'll pop down actually about 3 of them, just for odd numbers. And then I will take that little panel that you see up there that said life is a picnic, and I'm going to pop that on the inside. So let's take a look at our 5th card and how that turned out. That's super fun. Not a lot of stamping with all these cards, but I am happy with the turnout because, I mean, it's Doodlebug. It's hard to be mad. So let's take a look at all the cards I did make today. I would love to know which one was your favorite. If you did in fact have one, please list that down in the comment section down below. If you did like this video, I would love it if you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Again, I always appreciate all the love and support you guys leave. You guys are awesome, awesome community, and I will see you very soon in another video. Thanks so much for stopping by.